Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Path to 1 Million. And of course, as soon as I hit the live button, the police sirens go off in the background. My name is Cliff Dubinois. This is episode 60. I was clicking around on the channels last night trying to figure out if there was something that I could watch on TV. I had Amazon Prime up in the background. And of course, that movie Rudy popped up. And I love that movie, Rudy. If you haven't seen it, you should. There's a reason why Disney bought it. But if you want to talk about somebody who really wants to accomplish their dream, you really should watch that movie because, man alive, that guy was told no so many times. It was unreal, but he never gave up. So you really should put that in your watch queue if you haven't seen it yet. But it got me thinking about the choices that people make when it comes to achieving a goal or achieving a dream. There's always two paths, right? There's path A and there's path B. Path A is, you come up with an idea or something, say like, man, I would really like to get a degree, or I would really like to lose 40 pounds, or I would like to do whatever that specific goal is. And path A is kind of like the path you've been doing all along, right? You really don't put forth the effort to make that goal or that dream a reality. Maybe it's not that important to you, who knows? But path B is the path of greatest resistance. That is the path that will lead you to your goal or to that particular objective. And of course, throughout the movie Rudy, he's always choosing path B. He was always trying to figure out a way that he could play football for Notre Dame because that was like his dream in life. It got me thinking about the first time that I had ever experienced really tasted what it was like to be on path B and have people to tell you no the entire time that you're trying to travel path B and the resistance that you can take. I was in high school. I was a senior at the time, and I had applied to Mr. Simpson told us that we had to apply to 3 colleges, universities, and I had applied to Delta, and I had gotten in. There was another university, Western Michigan, that I had applied to, and I gotten into that one as well. But I really wanted to be an aerospace engineer. That was my dream. That was my goal. And so there was a college in Florida that I had picked, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. It was like in the top 10 in the nation. That's where I wanted to go. That's where I had my sights set. So I filled out the application, sent it in, and probably within, I would have to say like 3 or 4 weeks, I got a letter back from the college that said, sorry, you are not good enough. And really, all of that time that I spent in high school, like really not caring about my grades and screwing off, came back to bite me in the butt. I think I had like a GPA of like a 2.3 or 2.4. I wasn't surprised. I took the ACT and I scored an 18, which was like middle of the road. It's like, average score. And, so I remember, of course, I was crushed when I got the letter from the university. I wasn't completely surprised, but I was crushed. Still wanted to go. So I called the admissions office and I just asked them, I'm like, is there anything that I can do to get into the school? And if they would have said, oh, well, you need to go to community college for a year or two, I would have done it. I wanted to go to this specific college. And the gentleman on the phone, he goes, well, he says, there's not a lot you can do about your GPA, but if you can get your ACT above a 25, then we'll let you in. And I said, okay. So I went and I retook the ACT and one more time, and I scored 27 on it. So I went from an 18 to a 27, and I was stoked. I was absolutely stoked out of my skull. I was like, this is awesome. This is great. I applied to the university, boom, and I got accepted. The next time that I was told no on my path to becoming an aerospace engineer was when I had graduated from college, and I really wanted to work for the Boeing company. They were like the top dog at the time as far as aviation and aerospace goes, and I wanted to work for them. And I applied to every single Boeing company that was out there. I didn't care what it was. I don't care if they made jets. I don't care if they worked on the space shuttle. I don't care if they worked on a space station. I don't care if they worked on helicopters. I applied everywhere that Boeing had a facility. And over the next 6 months, I was constantly told no, 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 no. At least I got those little postcards in the mail that said no. At least I got some kind of response from them. But I was just told no, 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 no. Finally, I did have to get a job. I had student loans out the wazoo that were coming due, and I managed to score a job at GM. They were super excited to have me there. So I put in my time. I put in my work there. But I still continued to grind and hope that someday that I could actually get into the Boeing company. But just because somebody told me no now didn't mean that, it was going to be no forever. The third time that someone told me no was I found out that a Boeing recruiter was actually coming to Michigan. He was interviewing at U of M. So I decided that I would somehow get my name on that list. And I did. I was his last interview of the day, and I showed up there. And as soon as I walked through the door, he almost acted like he was annoyed that he even had to talk to me. But he didn't like the fact that my GPA in college wasn't that low. But I told him, I said, if you take a look at all my engineering classes, I scored a 4.0. I mean, I did everything I could. He just nitpicked me to death. It was like a complete slaughter when I walked in there. And I walked out the door absolutely defeated. And of course, he came back and said, sorry, you are not Boeing material. And that really hurt. And I just remember I was crushed. I was devastated after that. And I'm thinking to myself, man, maybe it's just not meant to be in the cards. But, if an opportunity ever comes up, I'm going to take advantage of it. So it wasn't until I actually flew to California, some friends of mine from college were getting married. And my friend Cindy, hello Cindy, if you're watching this, my friend Cindy introduced me to another recruiter that worked at Boeing. And the three of us had dinner, and we were just chit-chatting throughout dinner. And this recruiter guy really liked me. He was, asking me questions and probing me. And I kind of had a feeling that he was kind of like feeling me out. But, I really did not care one way or the other. I was just out to have dinner, out to have a good time, out to enjoy California because I'd never been here before. Anyways, after that was over, he called me up on the phone. He's like, dude, you are total Boeing material. I'm going to get you an interview with the right people. Forget what that asshat said before. We're getting you out here. So I flew out to California again, and I interviewed here for 8 hours straight. It was crazy. I had like 8 different interviews lined up back to back, but I did all the interviews. I paid for it out of my own pocket because I was that desperate to try to get in here. And sure enough, when I made it into the Boeing company, then I was excited. But to get there, that was like a very long detour to make it happen. But that was my dream. I wanted to work for the Boeing company, and I wanted to drive a DeLorean. For some reason, I got a thing for DeLoreans. I don't know why. I just do. I never did get that DeLorean, though, because, obvious reasons or another. But that was my plan. That was my goal. And so I was reading in a book this morning. And actually, I've got the book right here. I was reading in the book this morning. It's called Girl Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. And she wrote in here, when it comes to your dream, no is not the answer. The word no is not a reason to stop. Instead, think of it as a detour or a yield sign. No means merge with caution. No reminds you to slow down, to reevaluate where you are, and to judge how the new position that you're in can better prepare you for your destination. In other words, if you can't go through the front door, try the side window. If the window is locked, slide down the chimney. No doesn't mean that you stop. It simply means that you change course in order to get to your destination. And she is somebody, this Rachel Hollis is somebody that I really do have to admire, because she was actually picked to write a book about her early life in LA. She moved to LA when she was 19. Somehow or another, she became a party planner for the Stars. And so obviously she was full of all kinds of juicy gossip for a book. And so these book publishing companies were like, hey, write us a book. So she wrote a book about her life here doing this party planner stuff. And she submitted it, and all these book companies that were lined up, she probably had like 10 or 12 that were said that they were interested in publishing her book. But they went and they all had these meetings afterwards. They said, we really liked your book, but you need to have more sex in your book. There's not enough sex. Nobody's going to believe that a 19-year-old came to LA and lived here, as a virgin and did this party planning thing. But, she's a Christian. She didn't believe in sex before marriage. So she just, she didn't want to change the book because it wasn't her truth. It wasn't what really happened. And a lot of books that were coming out, like 50 Shades of Grey at that time, and everything else was coming out. And so all these publishers were thinking that the public would not buy a book if it was written by a girl at the time who, pretended to be, or not pretended to be, but actually was a virgin. So she was told no. All these companies told her no. She curled up on the floor of her bathroom, crying her eyes out, which we've all been there at some point in time. Anyways, she just decided to self-publish. Talk about the path of least resistance. Path A, path B. Path A means she does nothing. Path B, she goes ahead and publishes her book. So that's what she did. She self-published and wound up selling 100,000 copies of her book. And then the book publishing companies came back and said, hey, how would you like us to publish your book? And we'll give you 2 more book deal. Anyways, that launched her business there and got her going. So path A, path B. Path B is always the path of greatest resistance. And if you want to achieve your dream, if you want to achieve your goals or your objectives, that is the path that you need to follow to do that. And don't take no for an answer. Anyways, wanted to share that with you today. I hope you guys are going to have a phenomenal Tuesday. I will talk to you tomorrow.